Hi, I want to have a bit of a ramble through late night memories, but before I do, I would like to tell you about a lovely walk I had yesterday. Today is Sunday, the 3rd of May 2020, and it's dull and a bit cool, but yesterday was absolutely lovely. And I went for a wonderful walk along the riverside here. And for the first time in several weeks, I was able to actually be in the moment, not hankering for things that I can't presently have, but just enjoying the river, the wildlife, the sunshine, and so on. And rivers are wonderful things. And I was on the edge of the countryside, and it was absolutely delightful. This resulted, frankly, in a much better night's sleep. So later on last evening, I sat here in the dark and started remembering stuff. And it's a great joy remembering stuff. And I was thinking about Fitz. Now, Fitz was married to, let me see, my cousin's mother. So it was Josephine, and Fitzgerald Bloodsmith. Uncle Fitz never worked. He didn't have to work. He was of independent means, and they lived in East Sheen in West London, and they produced a couple of children, Mary and Terry. And I remembered stories I was told about Fitz in, in the Second World War. I believe Fitz was born in 1880 something, so he was too old for serving in the forces. But they made him an air raid warden. He was totally unsuited to this sort of work because, by his own admission, he was a complete and utter coward and not possessed of great presence of mind in any sort of emergency. Anyway, Fitz was an air raid warden, and one evening he was frying some sausages in a frying pan when the when the sirens went off, and he had to spring into action and marshal people and help them and reassure them and get them to the shelter and that sort of thing. But Fitz apparently, when the siren went off and he was frying the sausages on the hob, he said, instead of putting everything down and getting his helmet on and his armband and going out to provide succour to the neighbourhood, he immediately decamped with utmost speed to the air raid shelter. He got there so quickly. The fat in the pan was still bubbling. Anyway, Fitz didn't work. He was apparently a cartoonist and would occasionally produce a cartoon for a small commission fee. But he didn't have to work. He was able to just be very comfortable, and so much so that when his daughter Mary got married, they had enough spare cash to buy them a detached house in East Sheen in Orchard Rise, a house I knew well. They lived in it forever, really. and I used to go there as a young teenager. But in earlier years, Josie, his wife, had to manage Fitz because he was incompetent on a level that is truly patrician. She'd send him to the baker's to buy a loaf of bread, and let's say it cost 3 halfpence, a penny halfpenny. And because he was so incompetent with anything, she would give him the exact money, the exact coins, to complete the transaction. So Fitz was sent off to the baker's with a penny and a halfpenny, or 3 halfpence, however it was, and he put the money in his pocket and arrived at the bakery and reached in his pocket for the 3 halfpence, and he could only find 2 because there had been a hole in his pocket, and the rogue halfpenny had obviously escaped down his trouser leg. Anyway, he wondered if perchance the rogue halfpenny had gone down his trouser leg and fallen into his sock. So in the baker's shop, he took off his shoe and his sock, and indeed found the rogue halfpenny and was able to complete the transaction. So many of my mother's family were comfortable enough to indulge in a degree of eccentricity. And there was a member, again 19th century member of the family, which was sort of Anglo-Irish, and Anglo-Irish doesn't mean Irish, it means English people who are rich enough to go over to the Republic as it is now and exploit the Irish. One member, and a blood relative of mine, some second great-granduncle or whatever it is, was a chap called William Archer. And William Archer was, again, I think he died in the late 19th century, so he was a Victorian, and he was interested in microscopy. Became an expert on sort of microscopic pond life, including a group of animals called desmids. Look them up. I don't know anything about desmids. And he was awarded, he became a Fellow of the Royal Society. He was also the head of the National Library of Ireland at one point. And there are 1 or 2 stories about him, including that the staff of the library noticed an increasing, challenging stink in his office, and it got so bad that they actually investigated and tracked the odour down to a drawer in his desk, which turned out contained a couple of rotting herrings. And William Archer never married, and I think lived fairly modestly. It was noted that he lived with a, quote, scapegrace nephew and a housekeeper in Dublin, I think it was. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up, and it's not that interesting. But anyway, he was either just eccentric or eccentric and gay. I don't know. But anyway, he apparently looked much older than his years. But there was always this story in the family about Uncle Willie's money. He was alleged to really be sitting on quite a fortune. I'm not sure that was true at all, but that was the sort of family history my mother had. Um, some very well-off people, largely Anglo-Irish, deeply eccentric, and obviously Mary followed the tradition by marrying into another similar family when she married Fitz. The one thing in which Fitz would indulge in with energy was golf. He loved golf and spent many, many hours when he wasn't being sent to the baker's or frying sausages on the course. And one day he was out with fellow players and he said, "Do you know, I feel rather tired. I'll just sit down for a minute." And he died. What a wonderful way to go. You're taking part in something which you truly love. You don't feel ill. You feel a bit tired. You sit under a tree and you die. Anyway, that was Fitz. And that's who I was thinking about yesterday evening, sitting all alone here in the dark. Oh, before I go, please take note of the bookcase backdrop that we have all grown so familiar with when we watch everyone communicating in this rather new and rather strange way. Take care.